talk about tools, modalities, and providers that are helping you live brighter. Today we have Grace Secker, and we're going to talk all about holistic psychotherapy, which most people are like, what the hell does that mean? But we're going to dive into that and explain what that means to you and talk about how she works with clients and her practice evolve. So I'm super excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us, Grace.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
Of course. You want to do like a mini intro on yourself?
Sure. So yes, I call myself a holistic psychotherapist, and I co-own a practice here in Austin called Evolve Therapy with my partner, Marcy. And we both actually met in grad school for counseling, and then we moved to Austin. And after we finished our hours, we started our practice. And the reason why we call it holistic psychotherapy is because we focus not only on just the mental health, the mind and cognitions and the behaviors, but also how the whole body works together, the mind and body and spirit as well, if that is something that you're interested in. Mm-hmm. So we both have different backgrounds in different holistic practices as well. I've been through Reiki training, yoga therapy. I'm now in a training for yoga therapy. I've been yoga teacher training. Right now I'm in training for yoga therapy. So I bring multiple different things together. I have a profound respect for all holistic healing modalities, personally and professionally. I've been through a lot personally. So yeah, that's where I am today.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So what I've at least found in the mental health industry, we tend to get here because we've had our own kind of personal struggles in the space. And then, kind of get on this mission to help other people since we've somehow, at least overcome part of them. Does that resonate with you?
Oh, for sure. I started therapy when I was 14 years old. I pretty much fell in love with it. It was the space that I could be myself as a teenager. It was amazing. I was a part of a girls group at that age who really helped me with just really morals in general. And so honestly, since then is when I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to pursue this. So I went straight into college for psychology, bachelor's, and then I went straight into grad school for counseling. I've started back then, it was purely mental health that I was working on. And then around grad school, I started hitting into some other physical issues that definitely stemmed from mental and emotional trauma, but I didn't realize that. And so that's when I started to get into more holistic healing, just overall. Many different things, body work, physical illness work, everything. And so I found, there's so many other ways to heal. It's not just maybe Western physical medicine or Eastern physical medicine or Western mental health or Eastern mental health. It's a combination of all of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's so important for people to realize that there's just so many different tools out there. And it's like using that as kind of an exploration point and something to be interested in, not something that feels, sometimes I think either it feels intimidating or if things don't work, it feels like a failure for people. And I'm like, it's just not the right tool. Like that's okay. You don't need that tool. Maybe there's a different tool. And so I love that you have kind of this, toolbox for people to make sure that you find what's right for them, because I think that's another thing that people think, they get this kind of, well, that worked for this person and why doesn't it work for me? And then it turns into, again, this whole self-judgment around like, why am I not healing correctly? Or why am I wrong? Or why doesn't this happen? Or, because I think I love the holistic approach because I think it takes off that one size fits all mentality, which is like, this is the thing that shall fix you, which first off, there's no fixing. So, but I would love to hear kind of your thoughts around all that.
100%. If that is the one thing that I could tell everyone is that there really is not one way to heal or to grow at all. It totally depends on the person, which is really what I tell each client. Yes, I have certain trainings, but I don't have one thing that I use for every single person because everyone's different. And sometimes the specific therapy that I do may not work for you, and that's totally fine as well. we can refer you to someone else, or maybe it's even just a different healing professional practice, right? So knowing that, because I do hear that a lot, is like, I've been going through this and I've tried this and it's not working. And when you're in that space, it's super defeating. It can be, I see a lot of hopeless around that. It's really draining and exhausting. And understandably so, right? If you're not seeing results, it's really difficult to know, okay, well then what is going to work? And so it can be daunting, right? Because like I said, there are so many different ways, and that's daunting in and of itself. Like, well, then where do I go? What do I choose? But part of, I think, is one of the most important parts is whoever you're working with, are you connecting with well? If you can have that relationship with someone, that goes so far. It really builds a strong foundation, because then you can trust and you can become vulnerable. And when you can become vulnerable and you trust that person or just that space, so much more healing can occur too.
Yeah, that's so true. You know, so many people that end up at Illuma, they're on the edge of the hopelessness. Like it is, they have tried everything, and maybe it's gone on for years, if not decades. And that's exhausting. I mean, it's exhausting. They feel like they've been failed by Western medicine, by Western mental health. They feel like they're not being heard, that nobody really believes them or really listens to them. And so, you know, starting from that place of just really getting curious and listening to people, and so that they feel seen, is like vitally important for people to feel safe enough to go through something. Every therapy is vulnerable, put you in a vulnerable space. And so it's so important, again, that they feel safe enough to really let go, so that they can allow the healing to happen. Yeah, I really try to talk to people about, I just need the door like cracked open. Like I need like a sliver of is there a possibility that things could be different? Is there a possibility that you could get better? Because some people get to a point where the door is closed and locked, and there's a chest in front of it. And, you know, and sometimes they even get really attached to the story of being the sick person or the person that struggles, and they have an identity wrapped around that. And so there's actually a lot of fear in letting that go and to actually change. And what is that going to mean for not only themselves, but their relationships and the dynamics that have happened in their lives. And so they've never really known what is it like to be like a fully expressed person, or a healthy person, or a balanced person. And for some people, it's hard for people who've never had mental health struggles to believe that, you know, that somebody would be scared of getting better. But it is a real thing that happens with people that struggle for a lot of their lives. For sure. If
there's that point, like you said, if there's just a little window there's willingness. I usually say it's willingness. Is if that's there, we can work with it. And sometimes it really is there, but there's still this stuckness, this stuck issue. It's that dissonance. Like, yes, I want this. And at the same time, my whole body, my nervous system is saying no. No. Too scared. Or this is just where I've been for so long, and it's your norm, right? It's your baseline. I talk to a lot of people about that. Is this, yes, this may be your baseline. And so it's going to be really difficult to shift that. It's going to feel wrong. It's not going to feel comfortable. And that's when you know there is something changing and shifting, is when there's some uncomfortableness there as well. Yeah.
What are some of the ways in which you work with people to help that have been really stuck for a long time?
So more often than not, when I find that, I take it out of the mind. A lot of times it's maybe anxiety or depression. And when we keep having those constant thoughts going on and on, a lot of times we can't interrupt that with different thoughts. We can't just automatically be like, all right, I'm going to change those. Cool. If that were the case, you probably wouldn't have a job. And so
if you could think your way out of mental health. I say that all the time. If you could think your way out of mental health issues, everybody would be happy.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's where the body connection comes in. Yes. That's where working with the breath is number one for me. If we can get breath, oxygen to the body, then the body is not so tight and constricted as much. Because that's usually, I do this a lot because they may not physically look like that, but that's what your body, your nervous system is doing. And so if we can work to calm that nervous system and take you out of that just stressed, controlled place, more openness and availability can be there.
Yeah.
So it does start with breath work, maybe even just some gentle body movements to know that, okay, I can work with this, even just head down. I can work with this part to maybe interrupt that same cycle that I've been in for so long.
Mm-hmm. Do you do a specific type of breath work, or do you just do kind of standard breath work?
Nothing too specific right now. I am learning a lot in my training of pranayama. So I'm using some of that, working with the different inhale and exhalations. Generally, I start off with just increasing the exhales because that relaxes the body, and teaching that. Also teaching the difference between breathing only with your nose versus breathing in and out through your mouth as well. There's different ways that it affects the body. So I don't necessarily give it a name. It's just different things that I've learned.
That's awesome. And then do you have people actively do any kind of like body work and movement like in your sessions? Is that something that you incorporate depending on the person, or is that something that you help them with doing outside of working with you?
It varies, a combination of both. Yeah, I would say in session, there's not a lot. Like, it's not like I'm leading you through a yoga flow or anything like that. It would generally just be, it's purely like awareness of what your body feels like when maybe you're talking about something, right? That's going on. What's happening, what's going on right here, because that gives us a lot of messages and signals and to how that's really affecting you, that story or that experience. How it's affecting your body. So it's a lot of body awareness. Sometimes there are some movements because I can tell that it's just so frozen and stuck and I want to get out of the head. And then a lot of times it is, talking about what practices to do like outside of session.
Yeah, I do think the body, so many people are out of their bodies pretty much all the time. That is something that I really struggled with. Just kind of, I dissociate naturally. And I think that's from young, early childhood trauma. That was kind of that's my nervous system reaction to stress and trauma is I'm out.
Yep. That was me too.
I'm not going to be here. And it's taken me years of practice, and yoga was one of those things. Yoga, I started when I was 17, 18, I started doing yoga, and I taught for a decade, and so I've been practicing for more than half of my life. But I think the reason it helped me so much, even though I really at that point didn't really realize what it was doing. Like, I didn't know. I was like, I just feel a lot better. I do think that it was the first any type of kind of meditative practice that I did that was really somatically aware, where I was like being super aware of where my body was and not in my head, because I'm always in my head. And so it was a really helpful thing. That's also why I feel like EMDR was really good for me, because again, it was such a drop into somatic experience. And like, I just remember starting and then being like, okay, feel your body. And I was like, okay. Okay. And then it was interesting. It's a practice like anything. I mean, like meditation, like anything. And as you do it more, you become so much better at it. And it's like, it doesn't, when you first explain it to people, just like when you first try to explain people to meditation, it's like, it is a mind exercise. It's literally an exercise for your brain and for your nervous system. It's like, if you practice it, you will get better. Better doesn't really mean anything, but you will notice a change in your ability to focus and to stay centered and to re-tap into that even when you're not sitting, and to like be able to breathe when you realize you aren't even conscious of breathing 99% of the time. Yeah. So what other kind of practices do you feel like are helpful outside of working one-on-one with somebody?
Good question. Groups, I think, are very important depending on the person, right? But I've actually noticed more and more of me referring people to groups. I think it's also because of this past year, being isolated.
Like people.
It's really important to find that connection, because if anytime you're going through something, a lot of times it just feels like you're the only one going through it. And that increases the feelings of maybe not good enough or feeling depressed or anxious. And so if we can connect with like-minded people that may be going through at least something similar or have similar feelings, that takes there's like a release that comes from that. We find some kind of relief with understanding that, okay, we're not the only person. So sometimes it's not even just joining like a group therapy. It's joining, me talking to people about knowing who to trust, who to go to, who are those people in your life that you know you can be vulnerable with. Because we don't need to be vulnerable with everyone. It's just that those trusted people, we know we can. Other practices would be really, it's so much more about body movement for me. Knowing what it feels like how are you fulfilled on a day-to-day basis? What excites you? What ignites you? Because a lot of times, I mean, especially coming to therapy, usually there isn't much that is exciting you, or you're not feeling fulfilled, or you're not even having fun or finding joy in something. And that's huge to understand more of you, right? If you can understand what makes you laugh and what can create maybe practices that are creative for you, that teaches you more about yourself. And so much of my work with people is helping them understand themselves more and be confident in who they are and like who they are.
Yeah. Confidence is something that's really interesting to help people with, because it's one of those kind of intrinsic things that everybody really strives for, but very few people actually feel it. You know, a lot of people either fake confidence or they just feel it lacking. I would love to have us have a conversation about that. How do you help people, you know, with that kind of confidence, which I feel like a lot of times comes from trust, you know, trust of yourself, trust of the universe, if that's what you want to call it. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I think a lot of times we think that confidence has to be this, like, I am so self-assured, I am positive about myself, I know myself on all levels and I feel it every day. And that's just not the case. That's not human, really.
Unless you're a narcissist.
Yeah, very true. Yes.
You can have a personality disorder that makes you really confident.
Yeah. But actually, really, underneath, it's really not.
You're not confident. Exactly.
Yeah. So I always say start small. If it's even just knowing like what you want to eat. A lot of times we're cut off from even what we want to eat because we think we should be eating a certain way. Starting off with small choices. It's choices, really. Do I know that this is really what I want or this is what I need? That creates that confidence. It creates more of a like an alignment with yourself.
Yeah.
If we can make these small choices that we know feels good, it feels right. You know, when you make a choice that feels right, you know it. It's not I'm forcing myself to do this because I think I should. It's I want this. Sorry, I just pulled on my headphones. Does that make sense?
Completely. Yeah. It's so interesting. My mom's in a transitional point in her life right now. She just retired after like devoting her life to her career. And she is in this like place of indecision for the and it's really has been emotionally very hard for her because she knew that thing and she knew that she was good at that thing. And she was like, and now she's really like going like, who am I? What am I?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? And it's created some emotional kind of turmoil with her. I mean, I'm so happy that she's actually she turned a corner and now she's like, she got a book about the emotions of retirement and she's reading it and she's like giving herself space. Cause I said, Mom, you don't need to decide everything today. Like she was like moving and like quitting, you know, like I was like, let's just do one thing at a time. And, you know, also that she needs to hurry up and like figure out like what this next phase of her life is. And I'm like, the good news about retirement is you got a lot of time. Like that's actually what you have. Like you have this thing that you always haven't had, which is this time to kind of explore yourself and use that. But I think, everybody has those. And I think a lot of people in 2020 sent them into that very similar space of like, I was crystal clear about what was happening and where we were going and, who I was going to be. And either external things changed and they made a different decision, or I think just that level of stress and grief that we all went through really was a wake-up call for a lot of people to be like, okay, if all of this is really like on sand, then why am I doing stuff that I hate doing in the first place? Like, I might as well just go for it if everything could just blow up anyway, because I think, that security was really pulled out from people. And I think that, I think for a lot of people, of course, that was very scary. And I think it's caused a lot of instability mentally and just in people's lives. I do think it's interesting to watch some people use that as a catalyst to be like, okay, well then I'm just going to change what I was doing. I've always wanted to move to Costa Rica, and I'm just, like that kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just going, we're just going to go for it. And then to see some people retract because it feels so overwhelming or scary that things change, and it's interesting. That actually brings something up. Do you think the ability for people to be okay with change is innate to personality, or do you think that's something programmed, or do you think that's a choice, or do you think it's a combination?
That's a good question. Combination.
Yeah.
I don't think there is really one right way of that, because I think of people that maybe are stuck. It's not necessarily just from who they are personality wise. It's most likely because there's multiple experiences that happened in their life to where that's their automatic response.
Yeah, for sure.
So that, and yes, there are some just in general intrinsic personality differences that are going to help you be more susceptible to taking that risk or change. Right. For sure. I think it's 100% a combination.
Yeah. Do you use any personality assessment tools with your clients?
The Enneagram is probably the one I use the most.
My favorite.
Yeah. It is.
I get like really excited when other people talk about it. I'm like, yes, let's talk about it.
It's super helpful. I was one of the ones who, when I first took it, I was like, well, I'm scoring this and then I'm scoring this. I don't know which one I am. And then I figured out that I'm 9, and that's just so typical of a 9.
You're like, I'm all of them. I understand where all these people are coming from.
I totally get it. I can be this person.
An amazing therapist.
Yeah. I can be this person. I can be that person. I just want everything to be great and fine. And
exactly. Oh my gosh. My best friend, one of my best guy friends is a 9, and he's a lobbyist. And when we found out he was a 9, I was like, of course you are, brother. Because he can literally look at any situation and be like, yeah, see, here's a merit over here. I can completely get where these people are from. I'm like, you are so frustrating. Like, pick a lane. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to pick a lane. I have all the lanes.
Exactly.
And I'm just like a sloth.
I can see all sides.
Yeah. Exactly. That's awesome. Do you find that your clients are receptive to the Enneagram?
Yeah, they are. Either they've heard about it and they've kind of dipped their toe in before, or they haven't really, and they take it and they're like, oh, that explains me a lot. Like, yeah. And I mean, it's helpful for me too, right? I mean, I can get you on a different level. I can actually really see where this is happening. I actually had a client that I've seen for at least a couple years now, and I introduced her to the Enneagram not that long ago. And even though I felt like we have such a great relationship, I understand her really well, that just even gave me even more insight. I was like, oh, yes, this makes so much sense. That's totally your number. So we could talk about it on a different level and realize that there are so many we even backtracked a little bit to, oh, now look at this situation. Yep, that makes sense. And oh, this is how I react in this situation to these relationships.
Yeah, my therapist actually uses the Enneagram too, and it's always hilarious because she's like, "That's very 7 of you."
My fiance is a 7.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun now that it's actually very fun now that I'm healthy. It was a little bit of a shit show for most of my life. 7 unhealthy is a pretty crazy place to be. I absolutely love that. Yeah, it's such a beautiful tool to help people understand each other. We did it with all of our staff, which I think was like super helpful to kind of understand. We have all 2s and 1 8 and me.
What? Whoa.
But we're in the mental health helper field.
Makes sense.
And hilariously, the one person that's an 8 actually tested that she was a 2. And I was like, girl, you ain't a 2, you an 8. you just fit in 2 and you want to be a 2, but you are you're the boss bitch of the clinic.
Yep.
Nobody else. Everybody else being passive over here.
You need that. You have to have the variation.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been a really cool, it's been a really funny tool to kind of, I just think it's so helpful to help understand people at a deeper level. And then I think, again, it gives us way more grace with others to realize that so many people are emotionally motivated by somewhere that is so outside of ourselves. And at least you as a 9 understands that. But there's a lot of numbers that do not even. They're like, what do you mean you're operating from that space?
It helped so much when first it was Marcy, my partner, and I first did it. And she really resonated with her number, and it made so much sense for her. And then I did as well. And even us as business partners, we relate differently now because we know our numbers and we know how we relate in relationship and business. And the same with my fiance and I. When we first found out he was a 7, it was like, oh, yep. Okay. That's where all this is coming from. Gotcha.
Yeah, my partner is a 2. And so like when we first started dating, I had already been into the Enneagram and I was like, reading it to him and he was like, are you inside my brain? And it's something that it like helped so much to understand him, and because we relate to the world on pretty much completely opposite levels on so many different things that like our expression to like time, our relationship to time is completely different. Like he's in the now, I'm in the future. Makes a lot of sense. We're walking out the door. I'm ready to go. He's unloading the dishwasher because that needed to be done right now. What? It's like this hilarious game that we play. But it's just so, and he's so relational and so emotional, and I'm like all head and all solo. And so it's this really cool balance because he's brought out all of my parts that have been really something that I continually have to work on. One of them is to understand my emotions. And he knows what I'm thinking. He knows emotionally what's happening with me before I do. But he gets stuck in emotions and I talk him through what's happening so that we can think about it. It's a really cool tool.
That's special. Yeah.
It's fun. How do y'all use it?
Actually pretty similarly. We can recognize like, so I can be much more of an introvert, someone that I kind of teeter on both, but I've actually recognized now more that I'm a therapist, I'm much more introverted because all my energy is expressed with other people. And so then on my downtime, I'm like, I just need my own time. But Chris, which is his name, he has energy all the time. And we have to really recognize like, okay, I will validate that that's what you need. Like, great, let's have the energy, but I also need this time over here. And before we found that out, it was an issue. It was like, I can't meet you at your level. It's just not going to happen. And he was like, yeah, but this is my level. And like, I'm not going to, hinder it. I'm like, I don't, it's you, I get it, but I don't know how to meet you there. So it's just more compassion for each other. Right. And understanding each other on a whole different level.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
What are the typical clients that you tend to resonate with or that you work with? Or are there kind of specialties that you work with at all?
Yeah, it's kind of a few, not exactly just one, but the most I see are more like emerging adults, life transitions, type A perfectionists, that kind of person, a lot of body image and disordered eating. I used to work at an eating disorder clinic, and as well as a lot of my learning about myself and understanding like what works for me, like we talked about before, like choosing your alignment came from my recovery from disordered eating. And so I love working with people who really just want to understand more of themselves and use that to be happier and to be more aligned in life, to do what they want to do when we're stuck in thinking what we should be doing this whole time. So that's why I find that emerging adults are really involved in that, right? They're just going through different things in life and life transitions and out of college and first jobs and trying to just understand who they are in the world.
Yeah.
So I would say those are my main areas of specialty there. And overall, those are who I see, but then I work on that holistic level with that, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, I find, I also had an eating disorder for probably about 12 years. I've had body image issues my whole life, as long as I can remember. But it's interesting. I do think that, again, ties back to us not being in our bodies. So people who have disordered eating are not in their bodies. I actually I'm going to just say this, but I just listened to, what was it? This American Life podcast from two episodes ago was called Secrets. And it's maybe the best podcast I've heard on disordered eating in my whole life. It was
really, I'm going to have to watch that.
I was like crying in the gym listening to it because it was so the story of like kind of my eating disorder. It was the woman who was actually doing the story she was 45. She had had an eating disorder since she was in middle school, and she had never told one person in her whole life. Nobody had ever found out. She'd been married for 20 years. Like nobody knew. And then she wrote a book about it. And then she was lying the whole time to everyone, including her husband, about what the book was about. And then she just like put this book out, and I was like, oh my God. And she was like, it really even turned. And so then she actually was talking a lot about secrets and why we keep secrets and how we keep secrets and what secrets do. And so that's been a huge part of my healing, is becoming okay with having grace for myself when I was in that struggle of being a liar, and that idea that I'm so good at lying and what that means for people in my life still to this day that know that I was deceiving them for so long, what that's done to my relation. Interestingly, with Ken, it terrifies Ken to know that I was that good at lying and that I hid it for so long and nobody knew. It's this whole very interesting unpacking. And then she ends up talking to maybe 5 or 6 women about their relationship with food and their relationship with their body. And it really kind of ignited something in me. And I was like, I want to have like a dinner party about that, because I think it's like so interesting. It was just the most interesting look at it. So that's kind of a side, but
that's fascinating, because it's so true with eating disorders. Even I like to say a combination. There's eating disorders, there's disordered eating. Most women I have seen have experienced some sort of body image
and that's what
issues,
she said,
right?
Basically, she was like, most people wouldn't categorize themselves as disordered eating or as eating disorder, but almost every woman has struggled with body image and a bad relationship with eating. So it's she goes, it's pretty much everybody. And there's a ton of men. So it's not even women. It's like a lot of people.
And it's super isolating, lots of secrecy. And that what I really love to work within that is this kind of teetering on. Is it disordered eating? Is it eating disorder? And a lot of that, if you've heard the term orthorexia, that is, it's just so rampant, I think, right now too. how far do we take clean eating, right? How far do we take a holistic lifestyle? When it becomes impairing, when it becomes disordered, that's an issue, but we don't always see it. And yes, there's a lot of isolation in that. It's that work I see is so important, because once you start to uncover it, that's really how you peel back the layers of who you are. Because when you're in it, you're not fully you. You are totally doing what you should not be doing, what you should be eating, how you should be moving. There is no, I'm moving because I want to move, or I'm eating what I want to eat. I'm not listening to me. I'm totally listening to everything I think I should be doing.
Oh yeah. Well, that was the big thing. I was in the fitness industry during that entire time. And it was like, I ended up, it was like this crazy shame thing. Cause it was like, how could I be in the fitness industry? Of course, while knowing the huge percentage of people in the fitness industry that have eating issues. I mean, pretty much, I will just say most people. And it's because we're so solely focused on image all the time. Like, we're standing in front of mirrors, we're evaluating people's bodies, we're evaluating our own bodies. I mean, it's literally like your job is to like judge bodies all day. And then how do you unprogram that out of your head? You don't. It's just kind of the reality. And I just remember, when I finally came out about it and just being like, God, I just wish as an industry we could just pull back the curtain here and say, like, you being hyper obsessed, this like precision about your food and your weight and everything, and we're thinking that that's healthy, is delusional. Like, can we all just come out and just say, like, you being like insanely focused on, you're pissed if you're not on your, getting your elliptical 45 minutes in a day, and God forbid you're going to turn into a fat, like, it's this whole interesting thing. It's like, well, let's celebrate them because they're really hot.
Yes.
It's like a very weird situation. It was one of the reasons I had to get out of the fitness industry, because I was just like, I can't be here with 100%. All y'all talking, it was just a bunch of bullshit. I mean, that's actually how I felt. I was like, y'all are all full of shit. I mean, you're selling this image to people that this is healthy, and I know who you are, and I know it's not, and I wish it would just be transparent. And you taking a picture with a piece of pizza is not fixing it.
No, because you're mentally and emotionally not doing well, right? You might look like it from the outside, but it is harsh, and it is. I had that same shame because I was going through grad school when it was the absolute worst for me. And so when I figured it out, like, oh, actually I do have a problem, it was like, oh, but you're not supposed to because you're a therapist. That shame is
real deal.
Yeah.
So you're going through yoga therapy training right now. Are there any other modalities that you're thinking about bringing in?
Once I finish this training, I think I want to settle a little bit. I'm someone who is like, I want to do this training, I want to do that training, I want to do this. And even before this one, I did a spiritual coaching training, and I'm like, all right, I need to just settle into what I know. The one thing that it does keep going off in my mind would be more trauma training. I mean, I've had some here and there in the yoga therapy training. I've had a little bit of it, but I want more. So I know for sure I want to do that. I just don't know exactly when that'll be.
Yeah, well, that's great. Is Evolve taking clients right now, or are y'all full?
We are. Yeah, we have a few more open spots. Yeah, we do. And we're opening, we have a few open spots, and then we're also looking probably to grow our practice as well in the near future. So
nice. Yeah. Are y'all doing in person yet, or are you still doing virtual?
Virtual. Marcy will probably be doing in person in the next, actually, I don't want to say yet. I don't know exactly, but she's getting her, and soon though, not unknown, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm interested to see how the transition back to in-person goes, because I think a lot of therapists have become very comfortable with working from their houses.
I hear both. I hear either like, I cannot wait to go back, or nope, I'm pretty good. And that's actually where we fall. Like, Marcy cannot wait to go back, and I'm like, no, I'm pretty happy in my space.
That sounds like my two children. I have one that's like, send me back to school. And the other one's like, let's stay in our underwear forever.
Yep.
I'm never leaving. I'm like, we gotta leave the house, brother. But again, I think that's another personality. I have a 4 and an 8.
Yep. Are y'all are having in-clinic sessions? Is that right? Or
we've never closed.
Yeah.
We've been open the whole time. Yeah. So we only do in person. So
great.
We had to be open. Yeah. And it's been open the whole time. So
good.
And we've gotten crazy busy since the first of the year. It's gotten a little busy, but great problem to have. We're expanding into the Westlake Lakeway area at the end of the month. So we'll
awesome. Congrats.
Yeah. We're opening a space at Alive and Well, which is
I've heard of that.
So we'll have a room out there to start seeing patients on the west side. But I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your space. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share?
I appreciate it as well. It's been good. It's been fun. I don't think so. I feel like we covered a lot.
Okay. Well, I'll reach out to Evolve and I'll have people get in touch with you if they need to.
Awesome.
I appreciate you. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.